Hi guys, it's Achwomano. How's everyone doing? Good, I hope. It's time for another NEZ Magazine review. I'm probably going to get corrected because I've been told to pronounce it NE, I've been told to pronounce it NE, I've been told to pronounce it NE. So, it's this magazine anyway. I've just finished reading the 5th issue of this magazine. I'm not affiliated with them. I need to make that known straight away. I'm just a huge fan of what this magazine entails and the beauty of it and just how jam-packed they always are with stuff for a perfume lover. If you're a perfume lover and you don't know what this is, I would suggest trying it out, going to get some, because they're just great. So anyway, I have all of the other issues. I'm trying to get through them, but because they're so lovely, I really take my time when I read them. But this is issue 5. The main theme and article of this one is about naturals versus synthetics. It's about the chemistry of fragrance, and it goes pretty in depth. But even though there's always a main article, there's tons of other stuff all around it. Great photography, interviews, just fun fantasy stuff. So this is just an overview slash flip through of what you can find in this issue, if you decide to get it. So let's begin. I'm gonna touch it a lot like this because I just really love them. Oh, so good place to start. The magazines always come with a little interactive card at the beginning, sniff and play they're called, and because this one is about naturals versus synthetic, this one has a little game for you to play where it's a scratch and sniff of orange blossom, and you have to try and decide whether you can tell which one is the synthetic orange blossom and which one is the natural one. For the record, I guessed correctly. Just saying. But let's quickly scratch it again now because orange blossom is so good. I guessed right anyway, maybe you will if you get the magazine. So let's have a look at what's in here. You've got a bit about chemistry is our nature. What I really like about this magazine is that when you're flipping through it, there's always a surprise. The tone of the magazine changes all the time. So you'll go from reading a really in-depth article about something where it's so much information to take in, and then it will just be a double-page spread of a gorgeous photograph that's just a feast for the eye. So I love the photography in here. So there's a foreword about chemistry is our nature, and then they interview, how many is it? 1, 2, 3. They interview 4 architects, the nose of architects. So they ask them 6 questions each, the same questions, and it's about what perfume are they wearing, what smells do they encounter in their profession, what's their favourite type of material to work with, are there any odorous materials that they work with, if you had to create a building which had an odour, what would it smell like? I mean, just fun stuff like that. I love the really cute illustrations that this magazine has as well. So then you have the icons section where it pays tribute to noses and what they've contributed to the world of fragrance. So you've got Ernest Bohr here, Michael Edwards, Kentaro, Amelie Nothomb. Some of them, or a lot of them, I've never heard of, but there's sometimes ones you do know. I mean, Ernest Bohr I've heard of. So yeah, it's just about things that they've done, exciting contributions they've made to the fragrance world. And then you come to Odorama, which is one of my favourite parts of the magazine every time they do this, and it's 4 double-page spreads all about smell. They always do a natural material, so for this one it was cardamom. It talks about the cultivation, how it's used in perfumery, harvesting, cookery uses, the molecular structure. So they've done carrot before, and I can't remember what the other one was, but yeah, it was cardamom this time. Then the next bit of it in the Odorama section, they focus on a molecule. They've done ISOE Super, I can't remember the second one, but this one is Cologne. And I learned a ton about this because Cologne is one of those molecules that just pops up all the time. It was the one that started the whole aquatic, fresh trend of perfumery, like Eternity for men, just all of that kind of stuff. It's not something I actually like the smell of, but it goes in depth about how it was a mistake. It was found by mistake. You know, there's a lot of happy accidents in perfumery. and this was one of them. I think it was some pharmaceutical guys that were trying to do something, and they realized that, hey, this smells really strongly. They split something apart and it just happened. So yeah, I like the way that they explain how it's named, this one. It's about the ocean, this fragrance. It's Cal 1 is the name. Let me just go back to it. So it was about 3 groups of, or 3 big names in some kind of industry. It's Camille, Albert and Lalu, which is C-A-L, and then 1 because it was the first thing that they discovered, or something like that. You have to read it. I mean, it's so in-depth. I can read them over and over again. I really, really can. So yeah, that's all about Cologne. And then the next bit is about this smell of insects, how insects use pheromones and stuff like that to communicate to each other, mating signals, bees, all of that kind of stuff. And then the last bit of the Odorama is always where you're put into a situation where smells will be around you and what they could be. So the first one was a new car, the second one was a house party, so it had the smell of drugs and smoke and stuff like that, and this one is the holiday home, so it's got things about wood and grass, and it's just so nice to look at. It almost looks like an adult colouring book, this one, but yeah, I really like that one. Well, that's actually 4 pages. So the next bit is connections, and this bit has piqued my interest. It's an excerpt, little bit of bump about a book that was written by a man called Percy Kemp. He wrote a book about a man who is something that everyone's going to be familiar with. He's a man who has worn the same musk perfume for multiple decades, I think, and then it gets reformulated. So he writes a very lengthy letter to the people that make the perfume saying, why did you do that? So it's a book that I'm probably going to read and review, hopefully at some point. So that's really piqued my interest in that book. So it's got the letter that he writes to them in the book. So that's pretty cool. Now this bit, it's a article about a 19th century Parisian author called Joris Karl Huysman. And when I read this article, I felt like I'd kind of gone into the Twilight Zone. It was really, really weird. I did actually add some of his books to my Goodreads list that I wanted to say that I wanted to read them, and then I kind of took them out again. So he was an author that incorporated a lot of the way things smell into his narratives, but in a really strange way, almost as if Salvador Dali wrote a book about smells. It's very strange. He's got many books, and it was quite interesting to read about him, and I might try and read one, but I feel like they were just a little bit scary. I don't know why. Anyway, on to the next bit. So this is another bit that they always do in each, well, they've done it in each issue so far, and it's usually a bunch of people walking around a certain area from different fields of expertise. So you have photographers, you have perfumers, you have architects, things like that. The first time they went to, I think it was Paris, then the second one was Amsterdam, but this one, they went to Camden Town, which is very close to my heart because I live right near it and I'm very familiar with the area. So this was actually Lynn Harris, the perfumer from Miller Harris. She went down Chalk Farm Road with a photographer and maybe a journalist, and there's really cool photographs of Camden here. I mean, Camden, if you haven't been in London, it's a bit of a tourist trap now, but I've been going there since I was a kid. And they just talk about all of the smells. Camden is a cacophony of sights and smells and incense and market and lots of food. It's a very bustling, urban, cool area. So yeah, that's them walking around and just talking about their experiences and what they smelled and what they saw. So that one's cool. The next bit is Creative Spirits. I can't remember this bit because I read it so long ago. It's an interview with these two people that create liqueurs, and it goes in depth about how they come around to make theirs very unique, what kind of techniques they use, the way they get their blends and stuff like that. So they've done that before with a guy that's into coffee, I think, and there was another one in another issue about a guy that's into spices. So they always focus on someone that's very good in their field, that's not necessarily perfume related, but smell related. So this one was liqueurs, drinks. The next bit was kind of arty. It was only a tiny little bit, but it was about an exhibition, like an installation, an art installation that used glass and flowers to make smells. I love stuff like that. I'd love to go to more things like that, but because I'm so behind, I always miss out on them. It's my downfall. Then you have aromas and artwork. They've done this before as well, so they look at a painting and things that are in it and talk about smells or the artist. They've done a couple of those before. That was quite cool. This one's a supposedly very famous painting about fruit and stuff. So yeah, that was good. Oh, gosh, okay. What's next? The next bit is by Celine Elena, related obviously to Jean-Claude Elena, one of the most famous perfumers in the world. I think it's his niece or his granddaughter or something like that. It's a little bit of a fantasy. It's like a story that she's written about waking up somewhere and smells, of course, and stuff like that. That's just a one-page thing. And then you get into the actual magazine part of it. So what was in this bit? Oh, when I opened this page, it was like angels sang. This photograph that is a double-page spread, it goes into a whole thing about bergamot, and look at this. I just looked at this picture for about 20 minutes. I just thought it was so beautiful. I loved it. Sometimes it doesn't need to have a lot of words, you know, you can just look at a picture and just get lost in it, I guess. So yeah, it's all about bergamot. The next part, they've done it with oud before, they did it with vanilla in one issue. It gives you a couple of examples of some great bergamot perfumes down here. So yeah, just really great photography. So anyway, then one of my favourite parts of the magazine is when they interview famous perfumers. And this guy, admittedly, I didn't know who he was. When I found out the kinds of perfumes he's made, then it all made sense. It is, he's made Chloe, Gucci Rush, Fahrenheit. He's the person behind Parle Moi perfumes with his son. It is, what's his name? Michel Almerac. So it's an in-depth interview. They interviewed Frances Kurkdjian before. They interviewed, oh gosh, what was her name? It was one of my favourite. The Frances Kurkdjian interview was fantastic. Annick Manado. Anyway, she was great. She was really, really great. A couple of examples of his famous fragrances right there. Then you have a little section that's called Flashback, and they focused on a different time period or era each time. And this one is La Belle Époque. Now this photograph is another one that I looked at for a really long time, and upon further reading you discover that this is actually a 19th century picture of a Guerlain boutique. And when I started looking at it in more detail, you can see the little Mitsuko shaped bottles, you can see the bee bottles up here. It's just a really fantastic picture. So it talks about the history of the Belle Époque era, how it started to change perfumery, 1900s, and some of the iconic brands from them that time. So like Luban, Guerlain, Coty, Caron. It's got some really cool pictures. I'm sure I saw this in the Perfume Museum in Grasse. It looks really familiar. But yeah, so you've got all about the Belle Époque. Then another really fun bit they always have is the fantasy perfumery, where it's very famous historical figures enter a perfume shop and the writer acts as if they're a customer. So they pair a fragrance to them. So you've got Buffalo Bill, not the character from The Silence of the Lambs, which is why I immediately thought it scared the hell out of me. Yeah, I think there's Oscar Wilde in this one. Marie Curie as well, Queen Victoria. So they ask them questions and then they pair a fragrance to them, which is always really fun to read. It just takes you out of some of the heavier reading that the magazine has. So then you come to the main article, which I'll skim through because it's very lengthy. It's about natural versus synthetics. It's very in-depth. The main articles are always very wordy and packed full of information. So they take a lot of time to read. So this I really liked. I'll show you this bit of it. It is a chart about aromatic compounds and which ingredients they're found in nature. So it's lots of dots and it doesn't look very appealing here, but for instance, if you take eugenol, which is one of the first aromatic compounds I actually learned to recognize when I did my perfume course, you can look at it and you can see what it's in. So it's in bay leaf, it's in cinnamon, and it's in clove. So if you smell those three raw materials, you can get an idea of what eugenol smells like. So it's got all of the stuff here. Ethyl maltol and coumarin and linalool, and yeah, it's just a fun chart to look at, and it's got dots to represent how much or how prominent it is in those ingredients. So little dot, big dot, medium dot. So you've got the genesis of synthetics here. It's really long. How tomorrow's scents are invented. Cutting edge naturals. Who's afraid of the big bad perfume? So this bit was about allergens. If anyone out there like me is, you know, obsessed with the whole reformulation and why that came about, this goes really in depth about allergens and are perfumes that talk about being 100% natural actually 100% natural. And this really got me thinking about something, and I'm probably going to sound really uneducated when I say this, but isn't everything natural? I mean, everything comes from nature. Even if it's a synthetic thing, it's had to come from something natural. Even if they used a solvent to extract a molecule, it's still, even that solvent is made out of natural things. I don't know, I'm probably being uneducated. I'm not a scientist by any means. So there's the thing about the fetish for naturals. The Garden of Lost Scents I really liked. This was my favourite part of the main article, and it talks about materials that actually used to be used in perfumery but are now, they've been taken over by synthetics for many reasons. You've got gardenia, you've got calamu, fig. And I love the bit about fig because it says that now they use a thing called octolactone, which smells like fruity, milky coumarin and coconut, which is probably why coconut and fig are interchangeable in your brain in perfumery. So I really liked that bit. Then it goes on finally to talk about flavors in food and how we've become so accustomed to such vibrant, bombastic things like Red Bull, that when we actually eat natural things, they can seem tame. And it's loads of other stuff, but that's the bit that stuck out to me. I really liked that. Then you've got here the era of computer-assisted perfumery. So this was very enlightening, this part. This part talked about how a lot of brands will use algorithms to decide what's going to go into their next fragrance release, and it's algorithms based on consumers and what the market likes and what sold well before. And it made me realise that this is probably why mass-produced brands continue to make very, very similar things all the time. Nothing really changes, and it hasn't done for a very long time. They're seeing what's sold and they're putting this information into an algorithm, and then it's spitting out a thing saying, hey, make this because it will work. So it's kind of bad, and it's one of the reasons I dive into niche perfumery. Just saying. It's also the reason probably for flankers. So if there's a successful thing like La Vie Belle, they're putting La Vie Belle into an algorithm and they're producing 5, 6, 7, 8 flankers because it's a run of success, which makes me think it's just all about money. It's not about creativity. So the era of computer-assisted perfumery was very enlightening and made me really angry at the same time. So that's that bit. Then you have a interview here with the guy behind Parfum d'Empire. Well, it's not an interview, it's more just about him and what he stands for and his ideas when it comes to perfumery. We're coming to the end, guys, don't worry. Then there's a whole chart here about Tobac Blonde and how it was kind of paved the way for a lot of other tobacco, leather, aldehydic, chypre style fragrances. That's always fun to look at. And then the very end bit of it is they always do this, it's 30 fragrances reviewed by a bunch of different people that are kind of new on the market. So you've got loads, you've got Bloom, things that have kind of come out at the time of release of the magazine, which is, this one was 2 years ago, 3. I will catch up, I promise. So that's that, and then finally the last page is, oh, you've got the agenda, this is the thing that I always wish I was reading at the time of release, because there's loads and loads of events and things that are happening. I mean, given a lot of them are in Grasse, a lot of them are in Paris, some are in America, but still, at least if there was one that kind of popped up in London, I would be able to go if I was faster and read them quicker. But I like to take my time. Lots of books, ideas for books. There's one here, I think that NEZ Magazine has, which is called Aphorisms of a Perfumer, and it's all about Dominique Ropillon. So I will be getting that one because he's my favourite perfumer. And the last tiny little bit here is where you can find NEZ Magazine. And then there's a little tiny story about Ready Player One and virtual reality and smells, and it's a little bit kind of fantasy, I guess. Again, it's about the writer Alexis Troublon wants virtual reality and smells to become a thing. So that's my quick overview. I know I talk too much, but NEZ Magazine is amazing, and I'm now going to dive into issue 6, which is the one that has the brain on the front. I don't know what the main article or theme is going to be, but I'm excited to find out. So anyway guys, I hope you like this video. I'm Outromono, trying to make the world smell better, one video at a time. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.